I won't kill you, Boniface. War has started, full-scale war. We are at an unenviable position and I frankly think we stand no chance. The rogues, in their haste, started a war they hadn't planned properly. They didn't have the numbers nor the weapons. They weren't even sufficiently trained to handle simple weapons like spears and swords. I wonder what they were rushing for because I don't yet see anything that couldn't wait until every plan was executed. Also, they had grossly underestimated the power of the Woodland Pack. Though they didn't have many fighters and warriors, the pack had a very powerful ally, Alpha James of the Evergreen Pack. He had a very big army of meticulously trained fighters and they were now participating in the war. No one had foreseen this. Our troops are outnumbered by a ratio of 1 to 6. In the troops coming from the Evergreen Pack are also specialists like nurses and doctors. No one can defeat this and I have already sent word to Alpha George to reconsider his support for this cause. In a reply to my message, he said that he would be coming personally to assess the situation. It's 5 o'clock in the morning when I am summoned from my tent by Logan and I notice a large commotion in the camp. The rogues are up early. I'm unsure of their motive since our plans were to continue fighting from where we left yesterday. We had fought the enemy diligently but even then we lost about 10 warriors. Alpha George is here and he needs to see us. Let's go. Logan tells me as I walk out of our tent. We walk silently through the warriors and past the camp into the woods. George is waiting for us in a densely forested part. Hi Boniface. Great to see you. Please, sit down. He says. He's seated on a fallen tree trunk and I choose the furthest point from him. Logan sits on the ground ahead of him. George lights a cigar and I can only spot his position by looking at the glow of the smoldering ember of the cigar. It's still dark in these woods. I have come with around 700 of our warriors. This is our attempt to add to the troops that Matthew has. We have to win this and Alpha James has to regret his decision to join this war. He says. I know that even with an additional 700 fighters we stand no chance but I choose to keep quiet. That's impossible. Alpha James is leading the defense himself and you should see him. The man is as strong as nails. He single-handedly fought 3 of our warriors yesterday and defeated them. His warriors are very fierce too and I don't think you stand a chance yourself. Logan speaks and I close my eyes in disbelief. I had been used to his loose tongue but this time he looks as if he has crossed the line. There are things I wouldn't say even if I held them as truths, and my opinion is only shared when someone asks for it. It's still semi-dark but I see the silhouette of Alpha George rise from his seating position and he starts walking towards the ground where Logan is seated. I wonder what he is up to and by the time I realize what is happening it's too late for me to do anything. What I initially thought was an elongated arm turns out to be a dagger in his hands and it goes straight to Logan's neck. Alpha George knows the exact position of the jugular and even before I rise from my position Logan is already down. His loose mouth. A guttural voice comes from him as he expires and the first rays of sunlight are hitting George's head. He still has the dripping dagger in his hands and the cigar is firmly clamped in his teeth. He stabs a tree with the dagger and uses some leaves to wipe out blood from his hands, then uses the same hands to retrieve the cigar from his mouth. Thick blue smoke drifts into the morning air and briefly blocks his head from view. When it clears he speaks. I don't entertain dream killers. You kill my dream, I kill you. He says. I remain silent. I'm yet to come to terms with what has just happened. Today I want you to target Alpha James. I want all the fighters to find him, surround him, and kill him. This has nothing to do with the war, this is personal. He says. He has extinguished his cigar by stamping it on the ground. Understood, Alpha George. We will do our best. I say. He isn't paying attention. He removes his dagger from the tree trunk, wipes it with some leaves, and when he's satisfied that it's clean, he thrusts it in his scabbard. I'll hold you up to your word, Boniface. Alpha James has to die today, then the war will start, because it hasn't started according to me. He says, then leaves and disappears into the forest. I'm still seated on the same spot when 3 rogues come with spades and start digging Logan's grave. The hasty burial takes only 10 minutes and nobody can say if something out of the ordinary has happened. A very sad ending to a young man, but in this life we have chosen everything is possible. George has issued to me the directive, and even though it wasn't so elaborate, it was nothing short of a command. Alpha James is nothing short of a giant, and every fighter would be afraid of engaging him. His troops are so energized, plus they have great knowledge of the difficult terrain that is the woodland pack. This forest is the trickiest place I have ever been to. Just yesterday one of the rogues fell into a bog of quicksand, and by the time his partner went for help he had already sunk, presumed dead. Several others have been bitten by snakes and attacked by wild animals. The weather is too harsh, very hot and humid during the day and very cold during the night. Then the mosquitoes are more agitated than any that I have seen, and they carry with them some fever that has rendered so many warriors incapacitated, yet we have no nurses or doctors. The casualties keep on piling up. The trumpet is sounded and everyone gathers at the clearing. We are moving out at 9 o'clock. I will be leading about 600 fighters and I'm given some time to address them. I make my speech simple and to the point. We need to kill the leader from the other side, Alpha James. If we achieve that even at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we will have achieved our objective and we can come back to base. We move out of the camp and cross the river into the woodland pack territory, then march on, with those behind me chanting war cries, ready to kill or be killed. We can hear the approaching army too, and they are chanting their own versions of victory songs, or liberation songs. I get a glimpse of them and they're well prepared. Some of them are on horseback and others have helmets on their heads. It will be a difficult task identifying Alpha James. The 2 armies clash, and all you can hear in the battleground are sounds of metal clashing against metal as swords clash. I pick on some opponents at random, but my main duty is to keep the ranks motivated. And finally I see him. Alpha James is unmistakable, even in his armor and helmet, because he is the biggest man I have ever laid my eyes on. He's on top of a horse, severely crushing our troops. In his hands is a chain that's tied to a huge steel ball at one end. He swings the steel ball around, hitting the heads of our troops, sending so many down. I now understand why he has to die. Attention all troops, to the horse. I issue the command, pointing at James' way, and at least 10 people head there. Sensing danger, he alights from the horse and discards his helmet, then he wields a huge sword. 10 of my men surround him and they attack at once. With his sword and shield, Alpha James manages to fight them off, and some of them are dead from being beheaded. The scene is too sickening, but I surge on, ready to face him. He sees me coming and stands tall over his exploits.
Boniface Stevens, at last we meet. My work is simple: to make every mercenary die for what he believes in. Come for your death, Boniface, and remember, this death sentence on you was passed several days ago when you breached on our security.
He says, well, at least he knows my name. Alpha James, it will be an honor to die in your hands, but beware, I am also eager to have your head on my hands. Come on, Alpha. I say. He charges first like a bull, sword held high. The sounds of clashing metal echo across the field as he throws attack after attack with cruelty. I struggle to keep up with the directions of the swings, and I dash to the left as his blade slices down, with what could have been a fatal blow. All of my instincts tell me to shift and let our wolves handle this, but that's not the laws of the land. As troop leaders, we are more than role models, and though this war doesn't have any written laws of engagement, we need to practice fair play. His steps are quick as he runs at me again with his attacks. This time, I'm not quick enough to defend, and let out a hiss as the silver blade slices through my right arm. As he stands proud looking at my injury, I come after him full force, all of my anger and need to protect my life in each swing. We fight on, and I'm wearing out, but he's still very energetic, especially after he has drawn the first blood. My wound hurts, but I know that if I pay attention to the pain I am finished. One of his thrusts misses, and I strike back, all my force concentrated on the strike. So powerful is the strike that his sword is disengaged from his hand and my own sword is lodged in his shoulder. I withdraw it and he staggers backwards and falls. I walk slowly towards where he lies, his hands applying pressure on his badly damaged shoulder. Blood is splashing dangerously from the wound. My sword is held firmly in my hands and he's only a few inches away. He eyes me in apprehension, he knows what's next. I should have taken your life, but there's a reason why I won't. Find it, I say and walk away. I wouldn't call him a dog. He's your brother, Natalie. The long-awaited day is here. The day when the selection of the next batch of warriors to go to the battleground is going to take place. I have to go because I feel that James needs me by his side. I miss him so much such that I don't get sufficient sleep thinking about him. Just yesterday I dreamt that he was in danger and I didn't sleep again after that. All along I have been thinking of him as invincible, a killing machine who will go from victory to victory. But my dream opened my eyes to the possibility that he could easily land into danger. He was indeed flesh and blood like any other man. We are gathered in the pack's training grounds, waiting for the recruiters to come, and every passing moment I'm getting uneasy. There's this feeling that is pestering me and I pray that it goes away soon. There is no training today, and the trainees form small groups and engage in small talk. These days most people avoid my company out of respect for my position or even fear, and mostly I find myself lonely, except for my friend and who has never abandoned me. She finds me seated on a grass knoll, and I'm consumed by endless reveries. There you are. I have been looking for you all morning. What are you doing here alone? She asks. I suddenly wake up from my daydream and rise up. Nothing really. Good morning, Anne, I say. Good morning, Natalie, she says. Do you think we stand a chance of being selected to go to the war? She asks. I must be selected. I have seen how the trainers have given me a good scorecard, I reply, and then it hits me that I may fail in the selection. That would crash all my hopes as I can't imagine another 2 weeks without seeing James. This selection panel. You never know what method they use to get their warriors. I have failed 2 times already, yet I feel that I am in top form. I have also seen my scorecard and it's nothing but impressive. This time I am certain I will be selected. I have to be selected, she says. Me too. I have to go to the battleground. I miss James so much and I want to see him, I say. My mind strays again and I start thinking about him. What happens if we don't get selected? I hear her question, but I don't believe in such a possibility. What? Do you think it's possible? I ask. My heart is thumping at that mere thought. Oh my goodness. I would be devastated. She doesn't answer as the bell is sounded and we are all needed at the assembly ground. The recruiters have arrived and the selection is about to start. The ground is full of enthusiastic trainees when we get there. Everyone wants to fight. We form several rows and stand at attention, listening to a brief address. The beta of the pack, Josh, is talking. He tells us about the progress of the war and from his speech, it looks as if we are having a walkover. He says that the enemy is falling like a bunch of flies, and if the defense is sustained, our troops may cross into the enemy hideout in the forest and root them out. I'm praying for him to cut short his speech and start the recruitment already. 30 minutes after his speech, the recruitment starts. A recruiter goes through the rows of trainees looking at the credentials of a candidate in a huge file he's carrying. I'm so restless, but I manage to hold on. I observe that those who are selected are whisked away and the unsuccessful candidates are left in the grounds. By the time they get to us, I have grown so impatient and my hands are full of sweat. The recruiter bows a little after seeing who I am. Then he goes through my profile in the file. Those few minutes are so filled with tension and my wolf is getting uneasy. Then some pain goes through my left shoulder and I gasp. What was that? Luna, Natalie. I'm sorry, but you can't go to war right now. Maybe next time, the recruitment officer says, but I don't listen to him. My attention is in the pain coursing through my shoulder to my head. I try hard to remain on my feet and I notice that I'm shedding tears. He is injured. I hear myself saying those words whose meaning I can't decipher. The recruiters have the same message as mine for N, and she is as devastated as I am. She comes to me and holds my hand. Let's get out of here, she says, and we walk away. The pain is unbearable and I need to sit down. My energy is drained and it's as if I'm staggering. What's wrong? Anne asks me as we settle on the same grassy knoll she had found me earlier. There is some fresh air here and I begin to feel better. I tell Anne about the pain that had almost immobilized me. That's your wolf communicating. What you felt could be James' pain, felt through your mate bond. James could be in trouble, she says. How I wish she had remained silent, because the pain strikes again, through my back up my spinal cord and into my head. I gasp as my breath is taken away and tighten my muscles. It's too much for me and I scream. Calm down, Natalie. You are sweating, she says. I try to sit up, but it's impossible. My back is in immense pain. Take me back to the pack house now. I need to lay down, I tell her. No, Natalie, you don't need to lay down. We need to get to the battleground together tomorrow morning. I know the pain you are feeling. It's James' pain. You need to find out how he is, and I also need to check on my brother Peter, she says, and I feel a bout of relief course through my whole body. How? We haven't been selected? I ask. We will sneak away. We know where the battleground is, don't we? She asks. She is breathing some life into me because right now I'm feeling better. I am the Luna of this pack and I can't just sneak away. What example will I be setting? I ask. She gets up from the grass and I follow suit. Actually, as the Luna of this pack, you don't need to sneak out. You can visit the Alpha anytime you want, but this time not as a fighter but as a guest in his camp, she says. Now these are the things I needed to hear. Her words have strengthened me and we walk out of the grounds. Successful candidates are now being taken through registration and an awaiting vehicle is going to take them straight to the battleground. We walk back to the pack house together to scheme on our journey out to the battleground too. At about 5 o'clock in the evening, long after the trainees have left for the battleground, another vehicle arrives. This one has come straight from the battle and it's bringing in injured warriors and those who have been found unfit to fight. I'm still impatient and I need to know the situation in the battleground. Therefore, I walk to the vehicle and look around. If I can find someone that I know. The injured are placed on ambulances and rushed to hospital as the others alight and lurk around. Then my eyes spot her. She's one of those who have been found unfit to fight, therefore of no use in the battleground. She alights and makes as if to sneak out of the compound, but I can see her and read her motives. I walk quickly towards her and shout her name. Janet, stop right there. We need to talk. She freezes at the point and I approach her from behind. Then she turns to face me and I see fear written all over her face. She looks worn out and beaten. She has very little energy and it's as if she needs a good bath. Her clothes are soiled. mostly from mud stains and green matter that I deduce could be from brushes from trees. You hired attackers to beat me up, and they almost succeeded in killing me. Why? I go straight to the point. She drops her bag in fright and panic, and she looks ready to run. If you run, I'll have you arrested. Take your bag and come with me. As I said, we need to talk. This is the person best suited to tell me about the situation in the battleground, and I don't want to scare her away. The issue of my assault can wait for some other time. We walk into my office and I can see she is intimidated by the way she's looking around. If it was jealousy that made her hate me, then now she has more reasons to enhance her hatred, because this must be the life she had dreamed of, and to see someone else enjoying it must be very painful. Once we are settled in my office, the Alpha's office, I serve her coffee and we sit in silence. Then she breaks the silence after a while. Look, Natalie, I'm so sorry for all that I have done. My conduct isn't excusable and I am ready to bear the consequences for my actions. But please forgive me and I won't bother you again. Let's be friends. Just as we were back at the Two Hills Pack, she says, her face fixed on the ground. It's fine, Janet. We will discuss this some other time. I brought you here because I wanted to know the situation in the battleground. How is it? How is James? I ask. She has her gaze on the floor for a very long time and I think that she's withholding something. But then she takes a sip of coffee and stares at me. Are you sure you want to hear this? She asks me. I feel my stomach filling with butterflies and I prepare myself for the worst. Bring it on, Janet. I tell her how I pray that all is well with James. Alpha James is seriously injured. This information is classified and I'm only telling it to you in secret. You see, he was almost killed earlier today and you won't believe by who. She says. I'm now getting restless. She's giving me the news in dangerously low doses. Who is that dog who almost killed my mate? I ask, rage filling my veins. Well, I won't really call him a dog because it's your own brother Boniface. Natalie. Why? Natalie. You need to be very alert every time. This is the real battlefield, not some rehearsal or some training ground. You are going to kill or be killed my daughters. I pray that everything goes well and I will be happy to see you back alive. Of course I don't want you to go, but since you are insisting, I have no choice but to bid you goodbye. The emotional words of Joseph echo in my ears as and I delve into the jungle. We have been walking for hours and I'm beginning to get tired. The sun is so hot, but we have no choice, except to trudge on. Joseph had offered to drive us using James' car, but we declined, choosing instead to walk the long distance to the forest where the war is being fought. We would have easily shifted and ran, and eventually got there fast, but we are carrying heavy bags with our clothes. We also declined an offer from Beta Josh to give us guards. Our reason for declining was because we didn't want any attention, so the two of us walk on and on. At this rate we are going to reach our destination by 5 o'clock in the evening, and that will be great because the war will have been called off for the day. I can't wait to lay my eyes on James. In our conversation with Janet yesterday, she gave me the details of his injuries and I didn't sleep all night. Your brother is leading the rogues from the front line and the boy is good. Without him the rogues would have been defeated long time ago, but his leadership is on another level. She had told me and I was confused whether to rejoice or cry. In a war that was pitting my own brother against my mate, I wondered who to support. Blood bond versus mate bond. Which should prevail? He had him in his hands and I was surprised when he walked away. I wonder why he spared him, Janet had said. Even his own fighters were waiting in anticipation for him to slay James and they were mostly dumbfounded when he didn't. I know this act of mercy will get him into trouble with Alpha George, who is fueling this war. She continued. How are his injuries? I had asked. The sword that struck him pierced through his armor, then sliced his shoulder. Boniface was going for the jugular but missed and severed an important vein that led to a very heavy loss of blood. If not for our gallant medical crew and our warriors who whisked him to safety, we would be dealing with a catastrophe. You should have heard the cries of victory from the rogues. It was like they bagged a trophy, she said. And she had a word of caution for me. If you are going to the battleground, disguise yourself. If the rogues recognize you, they'll try hard to get you, then they will hold you hostage and place some demands which will be difficult to meet. Don't tell anyone your name and don't let anyone address you as Luna. I released her to go home late in the evening, and I had already forgiven her for what she had taken me through, though I made it clear to her that the Alpha would make the final decisions about the issue. What are you thinking about? Anne asks. We have walked for about an hour without a single word between us, each consumed by their thoughts. We are almost reaching the forest. Maybe we should wait for darkness to fall, then we proceed. I say. No. We must soldier on. Let's cross into the woodland pack territory first. Then we can locate where our team has camped, she says. We walk again silently, and my thoughts drift again to James. I regret my earlier decisions, going slow on his proposals, playing hard to get and not letting him to mark me the moment he realized that I was his mate. But I also attribute my decisions to the hurt that was inflicted on me by Alpha George. And this George, will I ever be able to forgive him? After what he had done to me and now to my brother Boniface. I wonder how he managed to indoctrinate such a young and good man into the monster people were saying he has become. Boniface, my brother, fighting with rogues against us was unbelievable, but then that was the way it was. Maybe we are so consumed by our thoughts, or we are just negligent, because the next moment we find ourselves surrounded by a dozen heavily armed guards. What makes me notice them is an sudden scream as the warriors materialize from the huge grass. I urge her to stop screaming and keep walking, even though my heart is thumping heavily. Another step and we kill you all. Drop your bags and go on your knees, a husky voice says. We slowly comply and drop the bags in the grass. They approach cautiously, their swords ready, and in a moment they are all over us. Our bags are torn open and their contents strewn all over. They scramble for the food items and throw away the other items. As they hungrily chew on the snacks, two of them frisk us for weapons. I have a dagger safely fastened on my right thigh, and I'm surprised when they don't find it. They take away our shoes and one of them happily puts on my boots. We are now barefooted. Who are you and where are you going to? The eldest, who looks like their leader, asks. We are nurses from the Evergreen Pack going to offer assistance to our wounded. I speak quickly before and lest she contradicts me. But in your bags there is nothing to suggest that you are medical personnel? You lie. You are spies and we are going to treat you as such. Now, move, he says, holding my shoulders and shoving me to take a certain path. I walk, and Anne follows closely behind. The grounds are gilled with sharp pebbles that prick on our feet. It's worse for Anne, and I notice she is now crying. The warriors are all looking famished and angry. Such people are very dangerous because they are easily provoked, and during times as these they can easily kill. We walk for what looks like an hour in silence until we come upon a clearing with several tents. We are taken into one tent and they handcuff us with a handcuff going into one hand on one end, and the other end onto a wooden post. You are war criminals, or better still, prisoners of war. You will stay here until our leaders come back from the battleground and decide your fate. You better pray that they come back in a good mood, and maybe they will. These days we are striking it big. Yesterday we brought down your Alpha, and right now we are working at killing him, the leader said. He should have known that he was adding salt to a fresh wound, but I decide to maintain my composure. He hovers around for some time. Maybe he thinks we are going to beg for mercy, but when he doesn't raise a conversation he walks away. Immediately he goes out and bursts into loud sobs, but I remain steadfast and defiant. Something in me tells me that this is not the time to give up. I need to reach where James is, to be on his side, to help in his healing. The enemy still wants him dead from what I have just heard. We sit on the floor for a long time until we start hearing voices of approaching people. There are so many, and I easily conclude that they are the troops coming from the battle. In moments, the silent camp is full of noise as people run helter-skelter, and some even come to the tent we are held in, but they hastily move out when they see us. Darkness is almost setting in when we are taken out and marched through the tents to a big tent at the edge. There's artificial light inside, and a generator roars from behind it. This must be the leader's tent. We are ushered inside and told to sit on the floor and wait. The leaders will be coming shortly to decide our fate. And is one complete mess, but I am unmoved. 20 minutes pass. Then the flaps of the tent open and 2 men walk in, and my wolf starts getting restless. She has recognized one of the men, and I wonder who it could be until they come closer. I can't believe my eyes. Right in front of me, dressed every bit as a soldier from his boots to his camouflage pants, is my own brother Boniface. Alongside him is a severely malnourished man, dressed in old threadbare clothes and torn boots. His eyes are almost popping out of his sockets, and his tall neck protrudes from his emaciated shoulders. Boniface is shocked to see me, but I can see that he doesn't want his partner to see that he knows me. They look at us from head to toe, then he asks the other man to leave. He needs to interrogate us. The man agrees reluctantly, and we stay in silence for a very long time. Natalie, why? He finally speaks. Why? What, Boniface? I ask. Don't you realize how difficult this is going to be for me? He asks. Then I see his facial expression change, and has sat up properly and stopped crying, and I witness as their eyes meet, and I can't believe what happens next. Prisoners. Natalie. I focus my attention on my brother. He is struggling with himself, with his wolf. I know right away what is troubling him, and is his mate, but he cannot bring himself to say the word. Hence he stands there saying nothing. And 2 is scared. She is shocked at first to hear Boniface call me by name, evidence that he knows me, then coupled with the initial fear of being a prisoner. But I can see her struggling with what is going on inside her head. She has finally found her mate, though, in the most unexpected circumstances, and has been looking for a mate for a while now. And sometimes she would confide in me that she would like him to be a strong and muscular man who is caring and loving. Well, I didn't know that she was describing my own brother, and is older than me by at least 1 year, and I am older than Boniface by 1 year too. That means that she is older than him by 2 years. But looking at Boniface and the way he has grown big, only a few inches away from achieving Alpha James height, he looks like he is our elder. He has developed a broad chest and strong arms, and the boyish face I knew is now gone and replaced by an handsome face with a defined jawline. He has also grown a beautiful beard that has signs of being trimmed, except now that he's in battle. He isn't different from his picture that I saw on James' computer, and in Boniface would make a perfect couple, and I want them to end the current stalemate and declare their mate bond to each other so that we can know our fate. It's as if they are privy to what I'm thinking, because they all say in unison, "Mate." I'm happy for both of them because I know each of them only so well. Boniface, even though he's been described to the Evergreen Pack as a terrorist, is a good man, and I would recommend him to, and who is like a sister to me. They all go silent, speechless, trying to find the words for each other. I decide to break the silence. Are we going to stay like this forever, Boniface? I ask. But before he answers, I'll deem it fit to do some introductions. Boniface, your mate's name is Anne, my friend from the Evergreen Pack. Anne, this is Boniface, my younger brother. I know you have heard his name because his reputation precedes him. However, I add when I see the expression on her face, he's nothing near what you have heard about him. You both are lucky to have each other, but now we must have a conversation about our freedom. We can talk about your mate bonds later. Boniface, I hear you are the leader here. Please remove these handcuffs and give us back our boots. I say. I can see him thinking and scratching his head. He's obviously in a heavy dilemma. He moves away from us and paces the expansive tent, and whispers something to me, but I tell her to keep quiet and let Boniface fry in the fire he started. When he comes back to us, he looks more disturbed than before. "Where were you going when you were arrested?" he asks. He is now a serious military man. "We were going to our camp to offer medical services to our army. As you can see, we are not combatants, so arresting us was wrong from the word go," I say. "Also, taking our boots was wrong, as well as throwing away our personal effects," and adds, I admire her newly acquired confidence. "I'll find your boots first," he says. "No, you will remove our handcuffs first, and when we are on our way out you will find our boots." "My hands are already numb," I say. "It's not as easy as you put it, Natalie. I'm not the only leader here. There's another guy known as Matthew. I must consult him for you to go free, and I must give him good reasons for your release. Seeing that you were arrested in our territory and you are accused of espionage," he says. From his face I can tell he is powerless. "Boniface, you are my brother. If you don't release us on any other grounds, please let us go on that ground alone. Also, bear in mind that Anne is your mate, and this war will not last forever. You'll need her. Let us go," I plead. "I can't do that. I'll be in trouble if I let you go. I may lose my life. This is a high-stakes game and I can't take foolish risks. Suppose I let you go and Alpha George gets to know about it? What do you think he'd do to me? Would you like me dead? Answer me, Natalie." His shoulders are carrying a heavy load, but I must push him. "What do you think he'll do to us when he finds that we are his prisoners? Do you want me, your sister, and Anne, your mate, to be at his mercy? Think, Boniface. Think," I say. Right then his accomplice, the man with weathered features, comes in, and from the look on his face he isn't happy seeing Boniface talking to us. "Boniface, what is taking you this long? You said you were doing interrogations, but this doesn't look like one. It looks like catching up on long-lost friends. Is there something I need to know?" he asks. He is now in a vest and his emaciated body is more pronounced. His ribs are exposed, and one can easily count them as they are arranged systematically to look like guitar strings. A guitar of giants. He has removed his cap and now his head is clearly visible. His receding hairline makes him look scary, compared to the well-fed Boniface. He's a study in contrasts. "I'm almost through with them, Matthew. If you could wait for me at the office, I'll brief you on the details," Boniface says. "No, I'm going to wait here. Remember, I must also file my version of the interrogation for relay to Alpha George. Do it quickly. We need to bring the radio on in the next 20 minutes. I know George is waiting for an update on today, and as you know, he doesn't like being kept waiting. Also, we need to include in the update the identities of the prisoners," he says. Those words fill up intestines with butterflies and I begin sweating. I now realize the truth in Boniface's words. "We are hungry. We haven't eaten for hours and we need food and water," Anne says. Matthew looks at her with his big protruding eyes, and for a moment I think he might harm her. Then he relaxes his face and smiles slyly. "I'll find you something. Meanwhile, Boniface, get done with this interrogation. We don't have time," he says and walks out. Much like matching, I can tell their scramble for power here, and Boniface is uneasy with being commanded by this Matthew guy. "As you have heard, we have to update George about you. I'm going out of my way now because it's the two of you. Right now you listen carefully because this is important. Natalie, you are now Catherine Sims, and you, Anne, you are now Betty Wright. For the purposes of our records, if George finds out about your true identity, you'll be in hot soup." He takes out a notebook and scribbles something just as Matthew comes in. "Take this. It's the best I can do for you," he says as he hands some packets of biscuits to us. I am starved already and I tear the nylon packaging and start chewing. "I am sure you are through with them, aren't you?" he asks, looking at Boniface. Boniface nods in agreement and he starts walking away. Matthew follows closely behind. Boniface hands to Matthew the piece of paper with our names as they walk out, and I laud his wisdom. When they're gone, I turn to Anne. "Good evening, Betty," I say. "This is not a joking matter, Miss Sims," she says, and we finally afford some smiles. "What do you think they will do to us?" she asks me. I am too busy finalizing the tasteless biscuits. My hunger pangs have gone slow now. "Nothing. We have Boniface on our side. Don't worry. Nothing bad can happen to us. His being here is a blessing to us. Just wait and I'm certain he'll give us the way forward," I say. Then I remember something and I reach for my thigh. My dagger is still there, firmly fastened in its sheath. Maybe I can put it to good use. We engage in small talk for a very long time until the camp goes quiet and we assume that everyone is asleep. We are still seated on the wooden bench when Boniface comes in hurriedly. "I need to get you out of here. Tomorrow. In the morning I'll come here with the way out. Don't tell anyone that you know me, right?" he says, and before we can answer he's gone through an opening in the tent. Immediately Matthew comes in accompanied by 2 guards. "Catherine Sims!" he shouts, and I raise my hand. "Benny Wright!" and raises her hand. He nods in acknowledgement. "You are now in our custody for espionage. Our master Alpha George has ordered for your imprisonment under tight security until he comes here the day after tomorrow. Do you have anything to say?" he asks, looking at me. "Nothing," I say. He fixes his gaze on Anne. She hesitates as if she has something to say, and we all wait eagerly. "Nothing," she finally says. "In that case you will be held in our cells from now," he says. His guards take hold of us and lead us away. Wait, this isn't the Natalie I knew. Boniface. This is definitely going to be the longest night of all. I am in a deep hole already and I don't know what to do to stop me from getting deeper and deeper. The problem started when I walked away from a subdued Alpha James. Everyone expected me to strike him dead. George came to know about it and came to our camp at night. I only knew of his presence when I heard the generator outside go off, and as a result we were plunged into darkness. I presumed it was the enemy's work because the generator wasn't faulty and it had enough fuel. With that conclusion, I jumped out of my sleeping bag and armed myself with a machete that never leaves my bedside. I had slept with my clothes on. I listened carefully, trying to gather any noise, and found it odd that no one in the whole camp seemed bothered. They were all silent. Very unprofessional of the whole lot. But that is expected from amateurs. Satisfied that there was nobody outside, I stealthily walked out and dashed into the trees. From the darkness I could look at the camp clearly and discern why the generator had gone off. "I knew you would come here." So predictable. A voice from behind me spoke, sending chills down my spine, but I quickly gained my composure after my brain processed it. What was he doing here at night? "I should have guessed it was you, but I didn't expect you here," I said. "So regrettable that you don't even have a simple sentry. What if someone attacks you at night?" he asked. As a matter of fact, there's a sentry at duty always. It looks as if he went to sleep too. "I'll have Matthew look at that," I answered, putting the blame where it should be. Matthew is in charge of the camp, not me. I'm only in charge of the battleground. "I came here to get an explanation from you." "Why did you do that?" he asked. He was still behind me, in the darkness. "What did I do?" I asked, turning to face him. "I made it clear that you were to kill James, not wound him. Then I hear you spared his life." "What happened?" he asked. He was seated on branches above me. "I brought him down. He had no weapons in his hands. In training we were taught that it's against war rules to strike an unarmed warrior," I said. "No, this is a war, Boniface, and you don't bring theories here. I'm not happy with you. You had the means of bringing this war to an end. The Evergreen Pack would have stopped fighting had their alpha died. But look, He's alive, yet you had him in your hands, he shouted. If you feel that I failed, you can relieve me of the command and I'll gladly accept to be replaced, I said, now angry but still composed. You don't tell me what to do, he said in a cool voice. I'm going to give you a chance at redemption. I still want to see Alpha James dead. I want you to organize a clandestine operation to raid the Woodland pack house where he's recuperating and have him killed. You have a few days to execute this, to finish what you started. In 4 days, I want to hear the good news, and if you fail this time, you die, he said. Then he jumped from the tree and landed just a few inches in front of me. He paused for a moment to let what he told me to sink. Then he walked away into the darkness. It's only then that I heard the undergrowth being ruffled, and looking around I saw at least 4 guards in the darkness following behind him. In a moment there was nothing, and the only sounds one could hear were the chirping insects. Deep in thought, I walked back to the tent and switched on the generator. It's only when it roared to life that I saw the guards who were supposed to be at sentry approaching me. I didn't talk to them, and I walked in and back to my sleeping bag. All through the day I had seen Matthew acting funny, and I knew he had been told by George to spy on me and what I was doing. I was smelling the end to our relationship with George. He was becoming a pain on my backside. We suffered heavy losses in the battleground today, with a vengeful evergreen pack inflicting serious injuries on our side, and only the darkness came to our rescue. We came back injured and demoralized. Matthew himself had a sword wound on his thigh, and I had witnessed him stitching it using sisal strings. Several warriors had died and their bodies were strewn all over the battleground, but the rogues were not going to give up. On coming back to camp, a surprise awaited me. My own sister Natalie, separated from me by unknown circumstances, was our prisoner, and to make matters worse, her friend, and turned out to be my mate. When Matthew and I raised Alpha George on the radio about the prisoners, he had sounded disinterested. Matthew, we are not there to hold women hostage. Let them go. After all, in your words you say they are not combatants, he had said to my relief. I was getting ready to ensure that they left that very moment, but what Matthew said shocked me. Maybe they mean something to the Evergreen Pack. Why don't we communicate with them and tell them that we have their prisoners? See how they'll react. Maybe we may demand that they leave the war in order for us to release the ladies. George had gone silent for a while, and when he spoke he had some energy in him. What do the ladies look like? He asked, and Matthew described them. I didn't like the way he called my sister Natalie Scarface, in reference to the scar that marked her face. Wait, did you say one of them has a scar on her face? You sure it isn't Natalie? George had asked. Who is Natalie? Anyway, the Scarface said her name was Catherine Sims. Could be she lied, Matthew said. My heart was now thumping dangerously. I need to talk to you alone, Matthew. Can Boniface wait outside? George had demanded, and I walked out of the radio room. I wasn't gone far when I heard the next instructions. I'll come there tomorrow. Keep those ladies away from Boniface. I have a feeling that your Catherine might indeed be Natalie, and if it's her, then we have hit a jackpot. At this juncture I walked away to warn Natalie and my mate and that their escape was my next priority. I haven't slept all night. I have learnt where the ladies are being held, and true to my predictions, the brick structure is heavily guarded. I can't let George get his hands on my sister, knowing only too well that he may force him to become his mate. Then he may use my mate and for his selfish gains. I map out the way they should take once they are free, then wait for the perfect opportunity to strike. My plan is simple. Attack the 4 warriors guarding the structure and kill them. Then take the keys and set the girls free. The best time to stage this kind of attack is when they have relaxed, and maybe slept as they like doing. At 3 o'clock in the morning I am ready to strike, and I leave my tent, sword and dagger ready. I move through the shadows and approach the structure from behind, then crouch round it until I can see its door. 2 guards are sleeping and one of them is keeping guard. The 4th is nowhere to be seen, and I assume he's gone back to his tent. I decide to count up to 10, then strike. At the count of 6 the door is knocked from within and I stop counting. This has spoiled my plans, but I decide to wait and see what happens. What is it? The guard asks reluctantly. The other guards are still asleep. I don't hear the response from inside, but the guard opens the door and I see something that I had never expected to see. The guard goes down in a thud, but he makes a very high-pitched scream that wakes up his 2 sleeping colleagues. Too late. Natalie stabs one of them with what looks like a dagger, then goes for the last guard. Still sleepy. He stands no chance and one thrust slices his throat and he goes down too. Unbelievable. This isn't the Natalie I knew. What has she turned into? A killing machine? I wonder. The 2 ladies move out quickly. Then as I watch they frisk the guards and remove their boots. And as they put them on, the 4th guard emerges from the bushes. And they can't see him because they have their backs facing him. He quickly understands what has happened and he draws out his sword and approaches stealthily, ready for ambush. From my position I take out my dagger and throw it straight at him, aiming at his head. The girls are still bending, fastening their newly acquired boots when the guard falls down behind them. My dagger has acquired target. They spring back in horror, but I am already at their side. Quickly, get out of here. This is already messy. You had counted 3 guards, but as you can see you were wrong. I say. Which way to our camp? Natalie asks, more composed than ever. You need to go past the gate. I'll keep an eye on the guards. Then proceed to the river and cross it. Once you have done that you will be on the woodland pack territory. Keep walking. Or running because your camp is about 10 kilometers from here. I say as I wipe the blood on my dagger with some leaves. I notice that Natalie has secured a dagger on her thigh too. Such a gallant soldier. And is silent, not used to the violence she has witnessed. The 2 ladies run out, and I watch as they approach the gate. A sleeping sentry does not even notice their departure, and only when they have disappeared into the forest do I sneak back through the shadows back to my tent. Just then all the alarms in the camp go off, blaring noisily and disturbing the silence of the cold night. I quickly strip down to a vest and shorts and move out. Run, Natalie. Run, Natalie. We run and run, in the moonlight past the gates into the deep woods. I am leading while Anne follows closely behind. She keeps on complaining that the boots she is wearing are so big for her, but so are mine. Even after fastening them my feet keep on playing inside, but I take comfort in the fact that even though they are torn, they are better than running on bare feet. We aren't gone far before the alarms go off, blaring noisily over the woods. They have found out about us, and I just hope that Boniface isn't in trouble. I wonder what would have happened had he not come in time to our rescue. Earlier at the cell we had plotted our escape, because a guard had made it slip that Alpha George would be coming. They had been told to hold us securely because we were high-value prisoners who had attracted the attention of the big boss. That slip of the tongue from the guards had made us think. Then I discovered that I still had my dagger, and the rest is now history. We keep on running, but Anne is lagging behind a lot. I keep on waiting for her, and this may become our undoing, and our pursuers may catch up. We are almost at the river when we hear loud shouts as the pursuers are released, but I'm certain the distance between us and them is huge, like 1 mile. The river banks are so steep and the water is flowing at high speed, but we must cross to the other side. We wander along the banks, looking for a crossing point. The war takes place across the river. There must be a crossing point and we have to look for it. From a distance we can hear the pursuers gaining on us with their dogs barking fiercely. In our haste we should have asked Boniface how to cross the river or where the bridge is, because if we don't cross urgently we are going to be captured. And we both know that it isn't going to be something good. Maybe we should surrender, Natalie. We are not going to find this crossing point, and even if we do I am very tired they'll get to us. And says as we run upstream. A surge of anger goes through me, then replaced by disbelief because of her attitude. How can she think like this after we have struggled this much to get here? I wonder. I stop in my steps and walk back to meet her as she is struggling to catch up with me. Listen, Anne, we ain't giving up, nor are we going to get caught. Now drop this attitude and let's get going. After we have killed 4 of their warriors, what do you think they'll do if they get us? Give us some coffee maybe? I ask her. We can see the flashlights now as they flash through the dense forests, and some voices are now audible. We now have to act, and I make the bold decision. We are jumping into the water. We need to swim across, I announce to Anne.
What if we drown?
Anne asks. The first flashlight beam reaches us, and in the semi-darkness we see the silhouettes of our pursuers. And they see us. Freeze right there. Don't move. The order is given and we see the silhouettes approaching. It's almost morning and soon the sun is going to rise. I speak to Anne in a low tone.
Let's jump, now, into the river.
My reasoning is that I better get caught running away than be found like a sitting duck. The river is roaring, with its water speeding south at a very high speed.
What if?
And starts to talk, but I won't listen. I turn and jump into the swollen river and immediately I feel myself going deep. Then the force of the water washes me away. I try to swim, but the current is very strong and I allow it to take me away. I have broken the surface and the only thing I need is a low-lying tree branch and I will be safe. I don't know whether Anne has jumped after me, but by the look of it, she has developed cold feet and most likely she stood there and got captured. Sad as it is, I'm happy I have done something. My pursuers haven't jumped in because I don't see anything behind me. The river approaches a sharp bend and I position myself and swim to the edge. Then with a mighty force I'm thrown out into the other side, onto the undergrowth. I'm now in the woodland-packed territory. Darkness is gone and in the morning light I can see across. A skinny man has been running downstream following my progress and, when I emerge from the water, he stops running and looks at me from across. I recognize him immediately. I struggle up the steep banks and stand on my side and look back at him. He opens his mouth and shouts at me, words that can be heard clearly above the roaring water. "We'll get you and kill you," he says. I stand there with my clothes dripping, and the man is joined by others who are dragging in with them. Boniface stands tall among them. I am dumbfounded, torn between running away and going back for the sake of Anne. Her cries are piercing the forest and I'm feeling guilty for abandoning her.
Run, Natalie! Run!
She screams at me. I turn my back and run into the forest. Destination: the Evergreen Pack's camp. Boniface. These women could not have executed these killings without inside help. Where did they get the weapons? Matthew said when Natalie and Anne escaped. We were gathered outside the cell they had just escaped from. The 4 guards lay dead, having bled excessively. I now got a chance to look closely at the 3 that had been killed by Natalie. She had aimed at the throats, severing the jugular. They stood no chance. I would have wondered aloud where she had gotten such expertise. But this was not the time. "You think someone helped them?" I asked. He turned around and faced me. I was beginning to think he was thinking I was the insider. "Yes, this door hasn't been broken into. Someone opened it for them after killing our gallant soldiers. We need to find out who that son of a bitch is," he said, shouting the last part. "Their boots are gone," one warrior reported. In the darkness I saw the anger in Matthew multiply tenfold. "Bitches. I'm going to kill them personally. I'll slit their throats just as they have done to my warriors. Now, everyone, let's get them. Get the dogs," he said. I'm happy no one can associate me with the lady's escape. I only pray that they are not captured because that can get me into trouble. But they are not that lucky, at least Anne isn't. We find her stranded, fighting between herself, whether to jump into the river or not. Some warriors have seen Natalie jumping into the river and Matthew runs downstream in pursuit. I follow closely behind and I see her just in time as she makes it to freedom. Matthew holds Anne by the throat as if to choke her, and I come in between them. You can't do this. We are combatants. These ones aren't, and we are going to treat them the way non-combatants should be treated. I say. Many warriors look at us, as we look at each other's eyes. Non-combatants who have killed 4 of our warriors. Huh? He asks sarcastically. You just said that they were aided by an insider, Matthew. Didn't you? Find your insider and treat our captives with decorum. Your camp is full of incompetence, and I wonder what will happen if we capture male prisoners. I say. He looks at me angrily, as if I'm his enemy, his head looking for a quick rejoinder. He finds none and clicks his tongue. We'll get to the bottom of this, Boniface. Meanwhile, take her back to base. He orders the guards. I turn to leave because it's already morning and we need to get back to camp and prepare for the day's war. Boniface, Matthew calls, and I turn to face him. Who is Natalie? He asks.